Hang on.
Right on your nipple. We have to edit that now, won't I? Right, serious.
Go on then.
3, 2,
Cut chops.
Well, I'm joined now by Soren and Simon, both very high up in the fleet. I think, Soren, you're currently 2nd overall, and Simon, you're 3rd overall.
Sure am.
Literally, this is just to kind of demonstrate. You know, we've been sailing in light wind, I think, for the 2 days that we've been sailing less, so between 10 and 15 knots, 15 knots max, dropping down to 5 some days. Firstly to Soren, yeah, obviously you're at the lighter end of the fleet. Do you want to tell us your weight and
Sure.
the skill levels that you use in light wind to... Actually, you're probably better off talking about how you use your light weight in windy weather.
Yeah.
And then Simon, you can talk about how you control weight in light winds. So over to you first, Soren.
Sure. So, thanks, Nick. So what do I do when it's windy? So for me, the Contender is a heavy boat.
Yeah.
That's how I feel it when I'm in it. And what I mean heavy is not heavy as the weight of the boat, but heavy as the amount of sail you have compared to my weight.
How much do you weigh, Soren?
So I weigh 73 kilos.
Yeah.
And sometimes 72, sometimes I get up to 79, but that's typically when I'm not so active. But at the moment, I'm probably 73, 73 and a half maybe. But what I do on the boat...
You're welcome to show us any of the controls or anything.
So I have to sail the boat quite depowered to be able to simply go fast, right?
Yeah.
If you have too much power in the boat will just pinch up all the time. So what I do is I use a lot of kicker, of course, and what I use the kicker for, of course, is to flatten, get the mast to bend, and thereby flattening the sail. And then, of course, I use, of course, full outhaul. So meaning that the sail is full flat here at the bottom, like that. And then the big, I would call it the speed pedal, becomes your Cunningham.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you start pulling the Cunningham, and I don't know if you can see that on the video, but when you pull the Cunningham, what actually happens is that you start bending the top of the mast.
Yeah.
So when you pull the Cunningham hard, you then open up the leach of the sail.
Yeah.
And that means for me that's where what I call the speed pedal, because you can be going upwind and the boat seems hard, like we had on that first day of racing here at the Royals, where it was too windy for me. And then I start pulling the Cunningham, and then, well, had I been in my own boat, I can really easily get it to depower and go off.
Just
right?
hold on a minute.
Yeah,
Go,
sure.
You're all right, you're filming right now, aren't you? I don't think you're justifying the shot there.
Sure.
Right, and...
Okay. Sure.
Stand here, sorry. So,
Yeah, so I'm on the back all the time, yeah. So, so as I said, I use the Cunningham as the speed pedal to open up the leach of the sail.
Yeah.
And that's for me what I can make the boat go fast on. And the centerboard angle,
I was gonna ask about the
centerboard angle, I would
Yeah.
say I put it down in what I would call a 45 degrees.
Yeah.
If you tend to get more up like that, it has to be really more windy than we had on the first
have
day,
you got
right?
your centerboard marked? Because I don't mark my board.
On my
just
boat at
guesswork?
home, I do. On this
Yeah.
one here,
By feel.
I mark it when I know what has to be. On this boat I'm sailing here, which is not my own, I tend to be more trying to find the right feeling.
Yeah.
Right. So there I haven't actually put any marks on it, but I have it on my boat
Are
at
you
home.
doing something with your rigging in terms of tension and
So I think the one special thing I have is that my mast is really soft.
yeah.
So that means that I can actually sail with my lowers quite tight.
Mm-hmm.
So when I measure the bend of the mast with the rigging on.
What do the lowers do?
So the lowers, So the lowers straighten the mast. So it basically pulls the mast back at the bottom, which means that you get a more straight mast. If you didn't have any lowers on, then the more pressure you put on these, you'll just be bending the mast all the time.
So
Right?
Gil was saying earlier that in his day they didn't sail with lowers at all.
Really old days.
How he did that.
Yeah, they were also breaking the mast back then a lot.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So you don't sail with a lot of tension in your lowers, you said.
No, I have them quite tight.
Okay.
So actually, I wouldn't say it's a lot of tension, but they are tight, meaning that they keep my mast straight.
Yeah.
So before I go out, before I put the sail up and all that, when I measure, I have maybe 5 millimeters of pre-bend in the mast, where most people would have more. but that's usually because they have stiffer mast.
This is straight.
This is straight as well. But you have a different physique.
We'll get onto that.
Everything opposite that you're talking
Well, there's
about.
some similarities.
My idea is that if I have the mast straight, then when it is not as windy, I still have a lot of power, even though I have a very soft mast.
Yeah.
So my mast, when we do the mast bend testing, is among the I would call it the softest in the class, right?
So we talked about rig. Is there any special technique that you're using when it's windy in terms of your position of the boom upwind? And are you trying to keep the boat flat? Are you trying to heel it slightly to leeward? Have you got your weight further back? What other techniques you need to do as a lightweight?
I would say you have two modes when you're sailing upwind, meaning that when it gets windy, right? You have the mode where you're just kind of pinching and going high, right? But then you have the other mode where like I said, with the speed pedal, right? And that's that mode change you do. And what you do there is you ease out a bit more than you would have done usually. Then you have lots of kicker on, lots of outhaul. You pull the Cunningham enough, you have the centerboard back. Then you step back a little bit. So your back foot would be behind the tower and your front foot would be around the tower. So I'll be back here, which is different from when I'm in the pinching mode. Then I go actually a bit more forward. Yeah. So you move back, and then what you do is you try and pull in the main. And actually the boat will be heeling over, but what you're trying to do is build enough power for the boat to move. Right.
Being light, would you say that you're moving around the boat more, controlling the boat more than a heavy person would? Because you don't have that same influence over.
I think I steer more. I think that's more my feeling is that I steer a lot.
Okay.
So I don't think it's not. I mean, I go forward when the wind drops, right? Then I move forward to get the bow down again. Yeah. Because the reason why you're going back is to lift the bow so you can get the boat planning upwind, right? Yeah. But as soon as the wind drops or you're losing that, then you have to go forward to get the bow down so you get the full length of the boat to build up speed again.
Okay, and there's one other crucial thing that we haven't talked about that I see newcomers to contenders, sailors especially, not maximising, and being a lightweight person, maximising the weight on the trapeze.
You mean not going low enough?
Not going low enough, obviously going on tiptoes.
Yeah, so when you're light, you have to use what you have, right? Yeah. So you'll see me doing...
What's in your armory to make that happen?
Yeah, so first of all, I go low on the wire, of course. But if it's... And you do that especially when it's flat water, because there you can just go as low as possible. Yeah. If it starts being wavy, you have to be careful because you get kicked off the boat. And actually when that happens and you start hitting the waves, you also start steering your body, and that's not a good thing. Then you want to go just a bit higher. Then, of course, you want to be all the time standing on your toes because you want to have those extra kilos that you can gain from it. Right? And then I have this thing that I know a lot of people don't like to do, and that is that I take my arm up and move that 1 or 2 kilos out.
We laugh about that.
Yeah. I think that's for the ladies.
Yeah, that's for a top athlete to do.
It's more than fair. What I usually do is that I get the boat going, and then when I can see, okay, I'm not really adjusting the main anyway. Then what I try to do is...
Hang on.
There's someone infiltrating the camera here.
Sorry?
You're on camera, Thomas.
We've got to start again. Don't stand behind it like some fucking idiot.
Go over there.
There's a camera.
Tom,
go over there.
We're filming.
There's a camera over here.
So if I go that side of it, I'll
just stand over there.
Go behind the camera over there.
behind the camera.
What a knob.
All right. So we were on the...
Sorry, I'd like something. I've noticed you have your out. What's wrong with that? Can't I say something?
3. You will in a minute.
Right.
But actually, we're going to start again. I think you've been on almost a minute now. So. But let's just finish off.
Sure.
Yeah. So 3, 2, 1. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So you want to be as low on the wire as possible. If it's flat water, you can be really low. If it's if there are big waves out there, you want to be a bit higher because else you get knocked off the waves. And also you will start steering, sometimes when you see the wave hitting you, you'll start steering based on that. So that's the wrong idea. So there you'll be a bit higher. Then you want to be on your toes, so you maximize your weight. And then I use this thing, as I know some doesn't like to do, but I use my hand. Yeah. And what I do is that I get the boat going, and when I can see, okay, I can now sail the boat without adjusting all the time. Then I pull in just a bit more, and then I take my arm up.
So you're holding the tiller and the sheet in the same hand?
Yeah, basically.
Well, it's cleated, presumably.
Yeah, but what if you want to cleat off quickly?
Then I just take my hand down quickly. So.
Well, thanks for that, Soren. I think that covers the lightweight sailor, and I think you'll be more than interested to know how Simon gets by, especially, I've got to say it, like it's been light winds here at the World, and not your weather at all, but you've done well. You know, you're third overall.
It's very kind of you.
What skills have you put in, you know, like, firstly, let's talk about your weight. You know, I think that's a big secret amongst the class, but this is the big reveal now.
This is the only sport that it's okay to call people fat. Oh, shit!
What do you reckon, Simon? Right, he told me this morning.
You're a strong man.
Simon is 104 kilos. Soren is 73.
In the morning.
So Simon, when he's out there, he's carrying equivalent of a suitcase fully packed on his boat. How does he do it?
Well, look, I don't really know, and quite regularly it doesn't work. But I have been putting in quite a lot of work, trying to elongate the wind range. And I guess the first thing is the rig. Rig. With North and more recently Kaylee Mars.
So you've been working with Graham, who I've just talked about with the sail control.
Yeah, so...
what particularly in the North sail would you say has an advantage over what is the common sail in the class, maybe a wavelength? What's the difference that helps you with weight with a North sail?
Well, I think to talk about the North sail, I think you have to talk about the mast at the same time. The two work very much together. I'm surprised that people are using the same sail as me with a soft mast. Yeah. Because that's not worked for me at all. But, yeah.
What have you got in your mast that complements the sail?
So I think I'm not a sail maker. All I've tried to do is use a tried and tested formula, which Graham has been doing, and he's a completely different sailor to me. But I think that the North sail it's a stiffer sail. It's a slightly more difficult sail to trim, but I think if you have got it adjusted in the right way, it does carry a little bit more power. Yeah. I think than the wavelength.
So Soren is constantly trying to find less power in the sail by more kicker, more Cunningham, centreboard higher up. Are you doing almost the opposite, whereby you're not?
So are we talking about light winds or strong winds?
Is there ever a point when you're overpowered?
Yeah, I'd say there is, absolutely, in this rig.
Well, General, let's talk about this week. This week, how have you been able to find power? What skills have you employed?
So first of all,
make it work.
Again, I do this slightly differently, I think, to Graham, but I use the outhaul a lot to give myself a little bit more depth in the bottom of the sail. That's worked for me. I know there's some other sailors in the Max, for example, who's not here. I've noticed he uses an awful lot of outhaul. I use that to create some depth in the bottom of the sail.
So that's the control along the bottom of the boom.
Yeah.
That gives you a depth and fullness that would add power to.
Correct.
Graham said the lower quarter probably of the sail.
Yeah, the lower quarter. Yeah. And it also, with a little bit of kicker, and not too much kicker with the Miler sail, again, you get a little bit extra leach return.
The kicker, which is this.
Yeah.
So you would have less kicker.
I would say certainly less kicker than I used with my.
And what does that do to the sail when you have a less kicker?
Well, with the North and I guess any Mylar sail, it's a harder cloth. It doesn't stretch as much. Yeah. So you can get more tension in the leach quicker. So therefore, you can create leach return quicker by producing less kicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's important that, well, I don't know whether I'm doing it right or not, but obviously
you and me both.
Soren talked about centreboard position. You know, in light winds, are you using as much centreboard as you can to get the power off the board?
I very rarely get it absolutely right down. I mean, perhaps.
But you would be further down than what Soren is, right?
I'd be surprised in very light winds. I would imagine they're much the same, because we're both looking for a similar situation. We're both looking for maximum power, really. But I think from what I see, Soren sails with a much flatter sail than me, generally speaking. Yeah. He certainly uses more outhaul generally. I think he uses the Cunningham more to twist the top of the sail off.
We're filming.
So Soren talked about trapezing techniques, and you know I'm sort of between you two, and I'm suffering out there.
No, you're pretty skinny too.
I'm looking at Soren, and he's got his hand over his head, and I'm wondering, well, what's Simon doing in light wind? So I guess, again, just for the viewers, we have a control that highes and lowers the height of the hook.
Hoop.
Hoop.
The hook's on your harness normally. This is more of a hoop.
Okay. We have.
I mean, this
Shut
perhaps
the fuck
detail.
up. So we have a hoop that controls the height, which our harness fixes to.
Correct.
Hooks to.
Yeah.
Where would you?
Bob on.
Where would you be? Would you be stood with on tiptoes on the side? Or,
So we're talking light winds again?
Yeah.
So I've tried two different ideas, two different techniques, and I've come back to actually having the hoop lower. So I tend not to trapeze too high.
So you would be sat on the side with the hoop.
I sit on the side and I tend
Trying
to
to demonstrate.
I tend to
this here.
trapeze off the floor and off
off
the case.
And you'd be here.
It's a little bit more comfortable and you can go in and out quicker.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
and you can transition from sitting on the side
Do you ever do that, Soren?
to out.
So I actually have the same thing, that I don't like to be too high, because what I feel happens is if you have this where your bottom is above the deck or even higher, what happens is you tend to be flickering around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not really with the boat any longer.
Yeah.
So the boat is kind of going and you're going, doing odd things.
Sorry, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold on to this sometimes
Yeah.
as well.
I do the same. My forward in light winds, when we're this forward, I very much have my hand here.
Yeah.
And then I have my foot on the centerboard case,
Yeah.
and the other one somewhere here. And then I'm just trying to,
I
get
think-
the feeling of the boat by touching it.
I think that's one thing for me, being a lot heavier. My position on the gunnel is pretty critical. If I'm too far forward or too far back, I really notice it.
Is there
And,
a point when it goes really light that you're too far
Yeah,
forward?
definitely, especially if you've got chop.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's my worst conditions, is when I've got a little bit of chop, and I can definitely. It's sometimes more comfortable to be crouched here, hanging on to this, but if you're not mobile and you can't stop the bow from
Diving
digging in,
Yeah.
then that's pretty slow, I think. So I tend to try not to hold the shroud, because it means that I've got a little bit more ability to move around.
Yeah.
And
I think those extra 20 kilos you have.
30 kilos.
20 something, right? when you go forward,
yeah.
I think you also stick the bow in more than I would do.
I mean, hey,
that's why I can sit.
If you were in
further.
like super flat, a lake
Yeah.
like we get in the UK,
Yeah.
then yeah, there's no reason why you can't go right to the front. But if you were sailing out there probably yesterday, I would have said, for me, if I was too far forward, the bow starts really digging in.
Yeah.
And you'd be better off being slightly further back around the centre of effort,
So,
just to keep things moving.
just like, and I hear of people considering a Contender, but they say they're too heavy or they're too light. We've got Soren here, who's currently second overall in the world. He's 73 kilos. Not just because it's light wind. Soren has finished second and won worlds in windy weather too.
It's pretty special though, isn't he? Look at him.
But no, I think Soren does well across all wind ranges. So he's 73 kilos. But I think what's special about this week is it's been light winds, and we've got Simon, 104 kilos, neck and neck vying for the lead. So that's a kind of testament to the boat that you can be
Yeah.
competitive across a wide weight range.
For sure.
I think you both agree, chaps, wouldn't you?
Would agree with you, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.